here today on this stage on a very sacred day for me. This time last year, on this same day, I was on a very different kind of stage. Supposed to be a photo there. I had just found out, and by accident, that I had a 90% blockage in the largest artery of my heart, and that I was quite likely on the brink of a sudden death. And 3 years ago, on this very same day, I was in my dad's room, looking at him in the bed he had just passed away in, waiting for his body to be taken away. So when the invitation came to talk about a shift to alignment on November the 5th, you know it was a hell yes. But I'll be honest with you, even though I am standing here with all of you today, there's still this quiet whisper that says, do you really deserve to be here? And that's where I want to begin. You see, there's all the things that your bio says about you, and there's the things that it doesn't say. My bio would tell you that I've led companies, that I've won awards, that I've mentored people, that I've sat on boards. It would tell you I co-founded an organization called Murtagh that supports women at work through key life stages, and those things would be true. But what my bio doesn't tell you is that I was born to Irish immigrant parents, and I grew up in a household with very little money, and one that I didn't always feel safe in. It wouldn't tell you that I was raised by a single mother who struggled for a long time, and that I was the little girl that felt like she had to hold it all together. It wouldn't tell you that for years I hustled really hard for my self-worth, and that I stayed in careers that didn't fit, and a marriage that ended when my children were only 2 and 5. Those are not the polished moments. Those are the very messy, but the magnificent ones. And they are the ones that have shaped me. You know, growing up, I realized I didn't grow up just strong. I grew up self-sufficient to a fault. That little girl who was holding it all together, she learned some hard truths pretty early on in life. If you want something done, do it yourself. Don't be too much. Don't have needs just be useful. It's better to give than to receive. And that became my survival story, my own inner glass ceiling. And I didn't even know it was there until I began to hear it cracking. Sorry. Because when you're in survival mode for a really long time, asking for help doesn't always feel available and safe. Being vulnerable doesn't feel strong. And seeking connection isn't always available because you've learned it's all on you. You know, for years, I chased the external, the titles, the accolades, the accomplishments, and I built a life that looked pretty good on paper. But inside, I was really suffocating. Because when you are hustling to be worthy, you forget that you already are. I really had to get to a place in my life where I realized I was out of alignment, and what would it take to shift back into alignment? I had to ask myself, what would that feel like? Who was I becoming? What would I need to do in order to get closer to where she was? What would feel impossible but would be a dream come true? For the first time in my life, I gave myself permission. I gave myself permission to dream of a life that didn't just look good on paper, but felt good in my heart. And I began to bravely rewrite my script, not overnight, but piece by piece. And I realized that 3 things were essential for me on that path. The first thing was connection. A deeper connection with myself, my intuition, my inner knowing, a deeper connection with my community, so many here today, a deeper connection with God and my soul. The second thing was coaching. I knew I couldn't become myself by myself, and angels really showed up to support me. And the third thing was compassion. The old ways of pushing myself through fear and perfectionism and self-criticism were no longer working. And I had to understand what true radical compassion meant. It does take a lot of courage to say, I'm allowed to have needs, I'm allowed to be supported, and I'm allowed to create a life that doesn't just look good on paper, but feels true and alignment with my heart. The shift to alignment brought about something I never would have imagined, and that was co-founding Murtagh with my business partner and friend, Sonia. I've learned that sometimes our deepest places of pain can surface our deeper callings to create what I never had, what my mother never had, a place where women could be powerful and be held, where softness and ambition can coexist. So maybe, like me, you need to also give yourself a permission slip to stop hustling for your worth, to stop carrying what was never meant for you to carry alone, and to stop letting old stories of who you are define where you're going. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to be supported. You are allowed to let others in. You are allowed to create a life that feels right for you in this season of life. And so it's not about having to become someone else, but really to come back to yourself. And that's why this day feels so sacred to me. Because a year ago, I was reminded of how fragile life can be. And 3 years ago, I said goodbye to my dad. But today, standing here with you, I feel both of our hearts. His in memory and mine in gratitude. Gratitude really for the chance to live in alignment with the woman I've become and the one that I've always been meant to be. When we realign with who we truly are, we stop simply surviving and we start truly living. Thank you.